Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on Toothgrass Hill playing as the Dowie against the force of the Greenskins, and this time we are getting right up in their face and aggressive with a Dowie Vanguard rush. So immediately hopping into this build, for a Lord we're running a Rune Lord, and the main reason we're running a Rune Lord is simply flexibility. He's a Lord that can support even if he starts in the back, relatively far in the back. He's got 150 meter range on Master of Wrath and Ruin. He's cheap. And as fast as his little feet can carry him, he'll be able to get us a Rune of Negation in the front line. And yeah, that's basically all that to be said for him. He's just a cheap Lord option. And that's all to say. Now for our main group of non-Vanguard units, it's all gyrocopters in the back here. 2 gyrocopters with just the steam guns, 2 gyrocopters with brimstone guns. Brimstone guns did get a buff in the last patch, so they are a bit better against monstrous targets, Arachnarok spiders, boar chariots especially. Units like that. And of course, the gyrocopters with steam guns are amazing at destroying squishy goblins. And of course, they do also have bombs, so you can do bombing runs, that sort of thing, which is very nice. Now for our main line, it's simply a horde of miners with blasting charges, 5 units of them to be exact, anchored by the Norgrim's Ironbreakers, and one of those units is also the Ikran Miners. I should note these are the Regiment Renowned Miners with Frenzy, as well as 3 charges of ammunition. So definitely a pretty potent force, and they can definitely leave a dent. Now, obviously, you don't expect them to, say, win against Crimson Killers or Blackorcs, but the fact is, miners do have AP, so they will be able to do some damage in return. And those blasting charges mean units like Savage Orcs or Goblins, which are often used to soak up missile play, then end up getting pretty badly beaten down. Finally, we do have 2 units of miners on the flanks just to provide a bit more mass. 2 Bugman's Rangers in the back. These guys, of course, have charge defense against large, and more importantly, they do have regeneration and good range, so they're going to be able to suppress my opponent's Night Goblin Archers, deal with them pretty efficiently. If push comes to shove, they can shut down chariots, buy me time that I need to dispatch my opponent with these Rangers with great weapons. And we've got 3 units of them, 2 normal, 1 Ulthar Raiders. Here in the center, of course, able to just overwhelm heavily armored troops like Crimson Killers, Black Orcs, that sort of thing. Potentially they can snipe Grimgor. Obviously they'll do really well against chariots as long as they themselves are not sort of overrun. So definitely a strong unit, definitely looking to get some value there. Now for my opponent, definitely a bit of a rush heavy build. He's running with Grimgor Ironhide, the biggest, baddest Black Orc there ever was. Running around here with Gitsnake. He's got his full kit. He's got Gitsnake, he's got Wah, he's got Stand Your Ground, and Foe Seeker. Unfortunately, no caster though, so definitely I think a little bit of a misplay there. But besides that, it's a pretty rushy build. A bunch of Savage Orcs in the front line, simply looking to get in close. And while Savage Orcs don't have AP, they do have a decent chunk of their base damage as AP. I do believe it's actually 9, so they're going to be able to tear through miners, especially pretty effectively, probably even with the blasting charges thrown into the mix. And there's quite a lot of support. So 2 units of Black Orcs as well as Crimson Killers here in the center. These guys will be able to crump some gits. Even the Norgrim's Ironbreakers can't stand up to Crimson Killers, I do believe. So the Rangers will definitely have their work cut out for them. 3 units of Night Goblin Archers. One of them is the Rusty Arrows, so looking to armor sunder and shoot down my boys. And of course, Dwarf Infantry, while well armored, if you armor sunder them, especially the unshielded variants, won't hold that long. Single unit of Boar Chariots on the flank, and then 3 Square Guards. So definitely a unique and colorful build, looking to rush into our Vanguard. You can see immediately we are getting some peppering fire there from the Bugman's Rangers, doing a little bit of damage. Nothing too crazy, to be honest. Blasting charges, though, are going to be doing some work. Now, Savage Orcs, their wide sort of spread, or the width of their deployment does mean that they're not going to take full damage from these blasting charges. You can see in some of these cases definitely taking pounding, but in others where they just didn't clump up that much, they're holding up pretty well, and they are going to be able to get in and start tearing our miners to shreds. You can see just on the charge how fast these miners go down, and definitely not having the time of their lives. That said, Norgrim's Ironbreakers being focused by archers, but they're not really going to care. These Savage Orcs are basically beaten down already, and already some of these Savage Orcs are actually breaking under pressure. So with the Bugman's Rangers throwing in their firepower, they'll be able to do quite a bit of hurt. Over here, certainly these miners having a bad time, but we were able to swing around. In the meantime, our Brimstone guns working on these Boar Chariots, and they are getting chipped apart, certainly. Now, Boar Chariots are a relatively cheap unit. And obviously a pretty annoying unit to deal with. Unfortunately, charges don't do that much damage per shot, but we are able to whittle them down slowly and sort of prevent them from getting too far. As they push through, trying to get in alongside the Squigs, get in on top of my Rangers, we are going to drop a Rune of Wrath and Ruin on them, prevent them from escaping or prevent them from getting too far and doing too much hurt. In the meantime, you can see the Black Orcs now being focused very heavily by the Ulthar Raiders, by the Rangers with great weapons. Crimson Killers here getting decimated, and by and large, we've actually managed to get good intercepts. So these Squigs here forced to rampage by the miners, so definitely a good snare there. The Bugman's Rangers, unfortunately, obstructed, which is a big misplay here on my part. I should have split them with the range of the great weapons. But by and large, we are able to hold. Now, big mistake here was not shifting the Gremlin's Ironbreakers over here to intercept. But you can't see just how badly beaten up the Crimson Killers are as WA goes off. And my opponent sort of pours through. So the Ulthar's Raiders and the Rangers with Throwing Axes doing their very best. Blackhawks here actually busted through while those Squigs tied down the Rangers. And now it's full retreat for the Dowie. So you can see we're throwing our miners into the fray here, just looking to buy ourselves a little bit of time. And we're doing our very best here to pivot Ulthar's Raiders, pivot our elites, to throw those hatches into their flanks. While on the back line, it's a bit of harass with our gyrocopters, which, of course, with their 100 armor, even with the armor sundering effect from the Rusty Arrows, are going to be doing some decent work against these squishy gobos. Over here, these Savage Orcs did rally, and the Crimson Killers find themselves isolated and cut off behind our lines, so they're not really going to be able to hold up. Now, my opponent here does have a lapse of micro, probably focused over on this end of things, and because of that, we're able to finish them off. But really, the Crimson Killers are way overextended right now, not able to do anything, and they are in full retreat. In the meantime, the Gyrocopters chipping away at these Black Orcs who have been caught here between the Rangers with the Great Weapons, the Miners who were just thrown into the fray, and the Rune Lord who's doing his very best to sort of pin things down. The Ulthar's Raiders here definitely taking a beating from Grimgor, who's just able to chop them up real good. But we're trying to escape. We're doing okay. The Savage Orcs are being broken. And now the Gremlin's Ironbreakers are going to be able to sort of take point and hopefully tie down Grimgor. And you can see as we run these Black Orcs down, we are going to be finding ourselves in a much better position. Certainly my opponent has basically breached our line, but yeah, it's just not going to cut the mustard. And there's still quite a few Rangers of the Great Weapons sticking around. We still got quite a few resources left. And you can see here we're actually going to take our Ulthar's Raiders and pursue the Black Orcs off the field. We're going to run them down, prevent them from rallying, prevent them from getting too much value. Over here, the Savage Orcs trying to fight against the Gremlin's Ironbreakers with some support from the Goblin Archers, but it's just not really going to cut the mustard. Gremlin's Ironbreakers are such a beast of a unit. They basically beat everything shy of like Swordmasters and maybe Chosen the Great Weapons. There's very little that can go toe to toe. Over here, the Steam Guns steaming the Bogman's Rangers as well as the Squig Herd, so definitely a nice little effort there. Unfortunately, my opponent's troops are rallying in the distance. You can see Crimson Killers coming back, the Squig Herd and the Savage Orcs and the Black Orcs all pouring in. The Bugman's Rangers holding up surprisingly well. Immunity Psychology probably not helping because none of these units actually cause fear, but with Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, with their high melee defense, they were able to hold the line here long enough now for the Gremlin's Ironbreakers to push through and really buy us some time. And now we've got a bombing run going through with the Gyrocopters, breaking these troops even further. These Black Orcs are going to rout. And on the periphery, you can see over here the Ulthar's Raiders chasing down these Black Orcs. The Rune Lord over here tanking some hits for the clan. The Ulthar's Raiders here are going to intercept these Squig Herd. It's going to be a bit of a brutal fight. I do believe Ulthar's Raiders can win out, though certainly it's going to be brutal and pitched engagement. Elsewhere, the Boar Chariots, which routed earlier, are just sitting here out of range, and it's very much a fight of constantly pulling in units back that have retreated or fled too far or whatever. Over here, Crimson Killers being intercepted by Rangers with great weapons and dumpstered in melee, though obviously the Rangers do take quite a beating. Crimson Killers, no pushovers in close quarters, but we were able to rout them. We still have a bit of ammo left, which is really, really nice. The Gremlins here buying us time, able to tie down both Grimgor as well as the Squig Herd, and that is finally going to be enough to start pushing things our way. You can see over here the Gyrocopters pursuing the Goblin Archers, able to steam them down a little bit. The Rusty Arrows especially, the Rusty Arrows are a big game changer in this fight, because their minus 30 armor will help against Gyros and their 100 armor. So being able to break them is very, very useful. Over here, you can see the Squigs did actually rout with some help from the Bowman's Rangers, as well as the Ulthar's Raiders, of course, taking point there. And now it is simply a matter of time before we win out. My opponent does have some troops recovering and rallying in the distance. Some Squig Herds trying to get back into the fight. The Boar Chariots here doing their best, but we got Brimstones on standby, ready to snipe them down and force them off the field. And at this point, it's simply clean up in Aisle 9. Night Goblin Archers here being dove upon by the Gyros. Big misplay here on my part, actually. What I should have done is hit from the front with one unit of Gyros, from the back with the other. But I didn't. And so these guys are actually holding way better than they should be. Well, what can you do? Sometimes you just play like trash. And in the meantime, Grimgor here, having the time of his life with Gitsnake, still holding strong, but really showing the weakness of Grimgor. Even against Dwarves, he just struggles to fight through. Now, Norgremlings obviously are not a trash tier or a chaff tier infantry, but Grimgor is just going to take forever to cut through these guys. He's just wasting so much time. And in the meantime, the rest of his army is gone. You can see the Squigs being mopped up over there. The Night Goblin Archers here being pursued by Ulthar's Raiders and the Rune Lord. And our Steamy Gyros. Certainly there's some Fanatics being thrown out by one of these units. I'm not even sure where are these Fanatics coming from. Oh, they're not listed as Fanatics on the, I guess, on the description on the card. That's odd. They were Fanatics, so that's interesting. I didn't realize that either at the time or now, until now. And so, yeah, interesting pickup there, but either way, Grimgor here is being overwhelmed. He's kind of tied down now. Hatchet's not the most amazing weapon to try to hit a stationary hero with. Not the most precise tool for sure, but we are able to debuff him here. We're going to be hitting him with a Marked by Ulthar, which is going to make him a little worse at resisting. Stop resisting, Grimgor, and we're going to be able to beat him down with the Might of the Dawi. So Pyrrhic victory for the Dawi Tide, and definitely a little bit of just a fun, silly game. My opponent's build, not necessarily the most competitive. The biggest issue being the fact that he didn't bring a caster. And really that's the main issue with this build. The build by itself is not necessarily that bad. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Grimgor in this matchup. Even though this is one of the matches where he can do okay, sort of like Queen can do okay in the Dawi matchup. I do think you're better off with basically anybody else, unfortunately. Azag is my personal favorite, I think, because the thing is with Dawi, those gyrocopters can be a huge nuisance. Now, maybe with the new Doomdiver catapults, you can dispatch them a little more effectively, but normally Azag is really your best bet to zone away gyrocopters, because neither Goblin Archers nor Airboys can really deal with a dedicated attempt by a Dwarf player to harass you with gyros. And I think that was definitely one of the big problems for my opponent. He had nothing to shut down my gyros. My gyros just bombarded his Black Orcs. They bombarded his Orc Board Chariots. And these kill counts were almost all against Black Orcs or Board Chariots. So it was really impressive performance from the gyros. The gyrocopters with steam guns just steamed some Savage Orcs and some Goblins and just broke the back of these troops. And it was really, really pretty potent performance from him. As for the rest of it, well, the Miners got trashed. That was to be expected. But the Rangers had a good time. Definitely you want some Ranger 3 opens to dispatch Black Orcs. They're even a good if you do a conventional build, because they can really help deal with these Orc Woblitzes. Especially if you stack them behind Iron Breakers. A Ranger with Great Weapons can do immense amounts of damage from relative safety. And Iron Breakers are one of the few units that can really ride out the storm with Wa. Even if you run like Longbeards, they'll generally kind of get trashed or overrun by a wad-up Orc army. But Iron Breakers, you know, they'll hold their own. They'll perform really well. So, regardless, well played to my opponent, Orkoe Woods here. Definitely good effort. My main recommendation would simply be probably just cut. You don't even have to make a crazy change here. You could cut a Squig Herd and get an Orc caster on the field. We can actually check really quickly in the custom game section where exactly how much it would cost to just get a crappy shaman. Like, let's say you do an Orc shaman. Maybe you want Power of the Wall. It's not a bad spell, but you don't want Spat. You don't want Brain Bristle. You don't want Gaze of Mork, Foot of Gork. All these damage spells are basically wasted against dwarves, in my opinion. Yeah, you don't need any of those. Now it is a little more expensive, about 800. So maybe cut. Well, yeah, I don't know how much. Like if we really wanted to get into the nitty gritty, he had 4 Savage Orcs, I do believe, and all of them were chevron up to 2. So you cut down. That's like 70. Yeah, if you cut the chevrons on your Savage Orcs, and then cut a Squiggy Herd, you can get an Orc Shaman on the field, and that's going to do huge amounts of work. Actually, never mind. You don't even want a Fist of Gork. You can literally just bring Here We Go. So you'd not even cut all your chevrons and be set. Otherwise, what might even be better is a Night Goblin Shaman, and you can bring him. You don't even have to bring Sneak and Steal and completely wasted here. Forget Madcap Mushrooms. Of course, the Madwood could be funny, but I probably wouldn't bring it. You definitely don't need to fix it. No Vindictive Glare. Boom. 389. If you want, you can still bring Curse of the Bad Moon, still cram it in for a Squig Herd and a few chevrons. So this would be my recommendation. Or you can try to sneak up your Black Orcs safely. There's different ways you could take this, really. But simply just wanted to highlight how much of a difference it can make for very little budget. You've got Foe Seeker on Grimgor, for example. Save yourself some cash. That sort of thing. So regardless, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining and fun. As usual, don't hesitate to leave your comments, critiques, and questions down below. I'll do my very best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.